In this video I want to show you how to build any weapon in the First Descendant from the ground up. My goal of this video is just to help you understand the basic weapon mechanics, so you can optimize both new and existing weapons without searching through countless videos or guides. Now I do think looking through other people's builds is beneficial for comparison or exploring different use cases. So this guide focuses on basically helping you craft a versatile weapon for general use. And by the end of it, I hope you'll understand the fundamental principles of weapon building, and you'll see how truly simple it actually is. So let's take, for example, the last dagger. Hover over the weapon of your choosing, and you want to press and hold F1 for details. And this will bring you to the information of the weapon, and you'll see various numbers on the left hand side, some of which may differ from the base stats due to equipped weapon readjustments or cores. After removing the increased values, the last dagger has a base firearm attack of 14,095, a base fire rate of 600, 12 rounds per magazine, 1.2 seconds for reload time, 12% critical hit rate, a 2 times critical damage multiplier. The weapon is also Pierce, with a attribute status effect trigger rate of 8% and weak point damage of 1.6. Now it does also have some multi-hit damage of 0.06, however this is really low, so we will not be building this weapon for multi-hit. Upon reviewing these specifications, you should be able to tell what stats are the highest compared to other weapons. It's clear that the last dagger doesn't have the highest firearm attack. However, you'll almost always want to increase the base firearm attack on any weapon you build, with only a few exceptions. We can also see here that the base fire rate is extremely high, which will further enhance with mods. Magazine size is another consideration. With only 12 rounds, you might want to increase it depending on your chosen descendant. For instance, if you're using Serena, she instantly reloads whenever she dashes, so there's no point in increasing the magazine size, while Glay also offers infinite ammo for the duration of her ability, so there'd be no point in increasing the magazine size for her either. Now the last dagger's reload speed is 1 second, making reload speed mods largely unnecessary, and while its critical hit rate is low from the actual spec sheet, this weapon's ultimate ability compensates for this by increasing the critical hit rate by 2.2% per stack up to 30 stacks for a total of 66%. Whenever we're hitting an enemy, it grants lethal dagger up to 30 stacks, giving us 66%, and this is an additive bonus, meaning it's added directly to the base critical hit rate of 12%, resulting in 78% critical hit rate before mods are applied, which means just adding one singular critical hit rate module like Better Insight can push this up to 100% crit rate as long as you have the 30 stacks. And the great thing about this ultimate ability is that whenever we're hitting an enemy, it constantly refreshes the duration of these stacks, ensuring you'll always have the buff active. The last dagger also features a decent weak point damage of 1.6. While not the highest, it's still pretty good, making it worthwhile investing some modules for that stat. However, multi-hit damage is extremely low on this weapon, making an investment in the modules for it to be a complete waste. So the primary stats we'll be focusing on this weapon is firearm attack, fire rate, crit damage, and weak point damage. Of course, some other stats may be useful in specific use cases, like having increased magazine size. It just depends on what you'll be using the weapon for. Now that we've analysed the last dagger's base stats, we now know it excels in fire rate, critical hit rate, crit damage, and weak point damage. Therefore, our module selection will prioritise maximising these 4 stats. The specific modules that you'll choose depends on your use case. For example, I'll demonstrate a bossing build, which will naturally include the weak point damage, due to bosses requiring you to deal damage to weak points. However, for content like Void Erosion Purge, you might also want to include chill modules into your build. Since the last dagger already has a strong fire rate, crit damage, and weak point damage, we can fully invest into raw damage output, and you can easily search for specific stats in your modules. For instance, if you want a firearm attack, you can just search firearm attack and it will show all the modules with that specific stat in the description of the module. However, for almost every weapon, you'll want to include action and reaction for firearm attack plus 61% and rifling reinforcement for the plus 32%. This is just to boost your base firearm attack, which is one of the main sources of your damage. And then for critical damage, we'll want to use better concentration. For firearm critical critical damage of 74.8 and concentration priority for 120%. Now this comes with a reload time modifier negative effect, which means the weapon will take longer to reload. As you can see, the reload time has now been increased to 1.56 instead of 1.2, which isn't much of a difference since it was so low to begin with, so it's still worth taking this module for the increased damage. However, the reload time doesn't matter depending on what descendant you're using, of course. Given that the weapon's ultimate ability only reaches a maximum of 78% with full stacks, we'll want to add Bear Insight for the plus 39% critical hit rate to achieve a perfect 100% crit rate, and since the weapon has a good fire rate, we can add the module fire rate up to increase the fire rate even further. And if you search fire rate, there's also other options that you can choose from as well. However, I would recommend going with fire rate up since it has no negatives. As there aren't many other options currently available, I'd recommend incorporating some weak point damage mods, like Weak Point Sight, Have Aiming, and Tenacious Hunter. These all increase your weak point damage further. Weak Point Sight gives plus 35% modifier, along with Have Aiming it has 40% weak point damage multiplier, and with Tenacious Hunter at 20 stacks, this gives us 100% weak point damage. So in total, with all three of those added together, that's 175% weak point damage multiplier, boosting our base 1.6 to a 4.4. Now obviously, Tenacious Hunter's stats will not show up on the left hand side. You'll have to keep that in mind. Since it's a module that requires you to get stacks, the weak point damage multiplier will not show up on the weapon info here. And finally, I also suggest including Firing Fiesta. This module has a 15-second cooldown, but whenever you reload, it stops your weapon from consuming rounds for 3 seconds. This is particularly beneficial given the weapon's a low magazine size, and if you're using it with Serena, whenever she dashes it reloads the weapon, allowing you to not consume rounds for 3 seconds as well. However, if you're using it with Glay, you might want to consider swapping this out for a different module, as her ability provides infinite ammo already. Now for the weapon cores, every weapon has a fixed core binding that you can't change. For the last dagger, you'll get 1 free slot, 2 firepower slots, and 2 tactical slots. You can use any core you want in the first. However, the second and third slots are restricted to either firearm attack or firearm attack against Colossus. I'd suggest just going with the firearm attack for general damage. And for the free slot at the top, I would recommend doing firearm critical hit damage to increase the damage even further. Since our crit rate is 100% anyway, we may as well maximize how much crit damage we deal. And for the fourth and fifth slots, you can choose between status effect trigger rate, rounds per magazine, fire rate, or reload time modifier. I'd recommend choosing fire rate, as fire rate basically equals more damage, but depending on your use case, you might want to use rounds per magazine here instead. As for the weapon readjustments at the bottom, you have several options. Since I'm building this weapon for bossing and my main status is increasing this damage, therefore I highly recommend prioritizing firearm attack against Colossus, crit damage, and weak point damage to maximize your damage output. Now if you're not going against Colossus, maybe you'll switch it for more rounds per magazine, but I would strongly recommend against taking any critical hit rate on your readjustment since the crit rate is already 100%. Hopefully that was easy to understand. I'm going to do one more example with the Clairvoyance, a weapon that I haven't built yet. If we go into its details, we can already see that there's a new stat, Chill Attack. This is always worth investing a few modules into as it provides an additional source of damage. The Clairvoyance also has a good crit rate and crit damage of 20% and 2 times crit damage. Therefore our primary stats will be crit rate, crit damage, firearm attack, and chill attack. The remaining modules slots can be used for quality of life, like a weapon charge speed since it's a beam rifle, magazine size, or fire rate. And you also want to take into account when building any weapon their unique ability. Depending on what benefits you gain from the unique ability might determine what modules you use on the weapon. With the Clairvoyance, we have the unique ability, the Thing Beyond. Whenever we hit an enemy with stage 2 beam, we inflict Void Gaze. Stage 2 is just the second charge of a beam rifle. And then whenever we hit an enemy with stage 3 beam, we inflict Appalled Calling. This will basically just lower the chill resistance of enemies, making the weapon deal more chill damage. And Appalled Calling does the same, along with reducing the action speed of the enemies, basically slowing them down. Weapon building shares many similarities across many different weapons, with not many drastically different choices. For firearm attack, we'll mainly always use action and reaction with rifling reinforcement, as this gives us a giant boost in damage. For chill attack, we have many different options. We can use chill enhancement for more chill attack equal to the firearm attack, and there are other options like chill priority or refrigerate gun barrel. However, these come with negatives of fire rate or reload time modifier. You could technically use refrigerate gun barrel, and you can negate the negative effect of fire rate by using fire rate up module, but it will basically be a wasted module slot just to counteract the negative effect. A better option for chill attack would be supercooled plasma, as it has no negative effects and can stack up to 20 times, providing 36% chill attack at full stacks, and it even removes enemies' defense. You could even take frigid burn or chill circulation. Since the Clairvoyance already has great critical hit rate and critical hit damage, we can enhance this with modules like better insight for more crit rate, better concentration for critical hit damage, and concentration priority for more critical hit damage. There's also this ultimate module called Lethal Finish that's also quite good, offering a 60% multiplier to critical hit rate, and the negative effect that we get from this doesn't matter at all since the weapon already has such low weak point damage. It's also worth noting that with Bear Insight we have a 27.4 critical hit rate that applies to our chill damage as well. That means we have a chance to critically hit with both our chill damage and our normal firearm damage. Now for cores on the Clairvoyance, we get one free slot, one attribute slot, one tactical slot, and 2 precision slots. The first slot, you can choose between the firearm attack or chill attack. For the attribute slot, we'll definitely be going with chill attack. The tactical slot is up to you. There are some good options like a rounds per magazine, fire rate, reload time modifier, or even a beam rifle charge gain speed. Your choice here just depends on what you need most for your playstyle. The precision slots don't offer much significance in combat benefits, so I'd simply recommend just taking 2 sprint speed cores for these slots. Finally, for the weapon readjustment, you want to roll for crit rate, crit damage, firearm attack, and chill attack. It's generally quite simple to create effective builds for any weapon. While there will always be slight differences and potentially better modules, cores, or readjustment options depending on your specific use case, I hope this video has helped you understand the fundamentals of properly building a weapon in the First Descendant. Just remember to examine each weapon's stats and build it to their strengths. Hopefully you found the video helpful. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.